Your retirement savings are in jeopardy. The banks and Wall Street firms are looking out only for themselves. The markets are confusing and treacherous to navigate without help. The number one financial question is, am I going to run out of money in retirement? Paul Merriman is here to help.
Imagine putting your head on the pillow at night without worrying about your bills.
Paul Merriman is an educator, award-winning podcaster, and best-selling author whose straightforward advice about retirement savings and managing money has been followed by tens of thousands of people.
You have the chance to double or even triple your returns over a lifetime. And the sooner you start, the better off you are.
Learn about his 5 life-changing choices to help you grow and manage your money in Financial Fitness After 50.
When you follow my plan, you will have more money with less risk. And best of all, more peace of mind.
Here's Paul Merriman.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm Paul Merriman, and I'm here to talk with you about the 10 money management guarantees everyone should know. Now, don't you love that word guarantee? Yes. I think that is music to the ears of most investors. And of course, the question is, do you really trust that word when you hear it? Or somehow are you looking for the fine print to tell you the truth? Well, I guess we've heard during our life that nothing is guaranteed but death and taxes. And in my industry, it's actually a word that is almost illegal to use. You got to be very careful that anytime you use that word guarantee, that you really mean it. So what does the word guarantee actually mean? I looked it up in the dictionary, and it says that a guarantee is a promise or pledge with certainty, unconditional commitment, like I promise to love and obey. Or how about this one? Read my lips, no new taxes. Or I didn't make love to. Promises, guarantees that sometimes we don't quite trust. So is that word guarantee really about the probability of something happening? Maybe it doesn't have to be absolutely guaranteed. Maybe it's something that there is some way they can weasel out of that so-called guarantee. Sometimes they have to weasel out of it because they're just not there to complete the guarantee. People buy products from insurance companies, and the insurance company promises to pay that annual annuity, but sometimes they don't because the insurance company fails. So I would ask you this question. Would you accept a guarantee if it meant that there were a 99.9% probability? Would you allow that guarantee if the outcome was, let's say, 1 out of 195 million? I mean, if it would work in all but 1 out of 195 million times, would you say that that's a reasonable guarantee? Well, I like that bet. That feels like a bet I'd like to take. All right, let me see if I can offer you that guarantee. I guarantee you will not win the Powerball lottery, right? What are the odds? 1 in 195 million, you win. Well, I'm telling you, there's 195 million to 1 that you're going to lose. I mean, you're guaranteed almost to lose. And isn't it interesting that even with the knowledge that the chance of winning is so unbelievably low, that people still think for a moment when they buy that lottery ticket that they actually have a chance to win. In fact, they'll turn to their spouse and say, if we win, what's the first thing we're going to do with that money? It's ludicrous. But these are the challenges that we have about the probabilities and what is guaranteed, what is likely. Some things Some things are questionable, but I can be very, very certain, and so I'm comfortable saying the word guaranteed. Now let me give you one of these to see if these pass your sniff test. And number one would be, let's start with a real easy one here. I want you to go to bankrate.com, and I want you to look at the rates that CDs are paying right now. Now, I did that, and I looked at what would happen if I put in $10,000 into a one-year CD. And it turned out that one bank would pay 1.2%. In other words, I would get $120 interest, basically, for my $10,000 loan to the bank. But another bank, and a very large bank, in fact, one of the best-known banks in the industry, would pay $20. $20. So what I'm saying is this is a guarantee that you would get 6 times the return at the bank that offered the 1.2 versus the one that offered 0.2. Now, is that meaningful? Well, let me present you with a challenge. In this particular case, you have to wait for a year. What if you just had to wait for one day to get that $100? Would you do that? Well, I suspect that you would. So why wouldn't you if you have to wait a year? Now let's look at the 5-year CDs. Again, a fairly substantial difference. What I found was about 1% difference between the highest and the lowest. And what does that mean over 5 years? Well, now we're starting to talk about some real money. In fact, from the top to the bottom, there was a $700 difference. And the major point here, the thing I want you to understand is this difference is absolutely guaranteed. And the same can be true of checking accounts. I saw them from 0.05% to almost 1%. And that, by the way, is a big deal. Let's just for a second pretend that you are retired and you're looking for things to do. How would it be if you found a way to make more money on your checking account, and by doing that, you made something like, let's just say your return was $50 an hour or $100 an hour? Well, I don't know what you're being paid right now as a retiree, but I would think that a $50 to $100 an hour kind of paycheck would be okay. So there's an absolute guaranteed difference. Now let's look at another kind of a guarantee. Again, this is a guarantee that I can say is, from everything I know, would be 100%. You've heard me say that index funds are the way to go. And that with index funds, you get low expenses. You get lots of diversification. And the biggest index fund in the industry is the S&P 500. And here's what I know. You can buy the S&P 500 index. You can buy it with as much as a 1% difference, even more than 1% difference in annual return. How can that be? It's the same index. Well, the reason that it can be is because one has a higher expense ratio. It will not surprise you to find out that that one with a higher expense ratio is a load fund, right? Are you shocked? I suspect not. But when you look at the difference over a number of years of what you would end up with that 1% less, it can literally be half of the money or even less that you would have gotten had you chosen that fund that had the lower expense ratio. Now, I can't guarantee that those two S&P 500 funds would be managed absolutely exactly the same, but as close as I would ever want to believe the word guaranteed. Number three is another one that I feel so confident would in fact be able to say guaranteed, and that is that you own one stock, one company, as opposed to adding more stocks to the portfolio. I believe it's guaranteed that if you go from one stock to 100, from 100 to 1,000, that you are reducing your risk. I talked in my presentation a lot about the academics. Well, this is one of the interesting things the academics came up with. What is your expected gain for one stock versus 1,000 stocks? Well, I know what people believe if it's their stock. If they pick that stock, they would confidently say, without the word guaranteed, they would confidently say, my stock is better than any other stock because I'm buying it. Now that may sound kind of silly, but in the surveys that have been taken, that is exactly how people feel, that there's some advantage. The company's going to grow faster because it's in my portfolio. Well, the academics took a little different look. They said, look, that one growth company, large growth company, should have the same return over 10 years as 1,000 large growth companies. Well, what's the implication of that? Well, the implication to you is that you end up without the risk of that one stock being an Enron or a Lehman Brothers. And that is a huge advantage, that you can get the same return but have less risk. Now, in some cases, and I think this is very common, people will say, well, there are certainly some markets that are inefficient, and people will make more money if they have fewer stocks, because those managers who know how to pick those kind of stocks, they're going to find that really good stock. Well, I looked at an emerging market fund, fairly high risk kind of a fund, and one fund had over 3,000 different companies. But the other funds in that category, I looked at their averages. They have about 200 funds in their portfolios. And yet the one with 3,000 plus for 10 years made 18% a year versus 15% a year for the smaller number of companies in that portfolio. This is an important piece of information to you, because it says that you can, yes, you can make a good return and not have to count on somebody picking just the right companies. Now, number 4, another slam dunk. This is one of those guarantees that I feel very confident nobody's going to jump out of the audience at me and say, you're wrong, Paul. No, not at all, because I'm talking about adding bonds to a stock portfolio. I'm saying that if you take 50% of your money that you had in stocks and put that into bonds, you're going to have less risk. And of course, that's important in establishing whatever your risk limit might be. But the bottom line is, at the same time as you reduce your risk, you're probably going to reduce your return. And that's okay, because that lower risk is important to you. But the key here is that those bonds added to your portfolio, they take it from this to this. That's the guarantee. Number 5. Now this one is hotly debated, but I don't think there's any debate at all. I am not uncomfortable saying that passively managed funds, like the index funds I've talked about so much, they beat the actively managed funds. Now, I don't mean to imply that every year that will happen, but I want you just to pretend for a second that you're looking at a room of 100 people, and they're all trading, or not, 100 stocks. And so half of the room simply buys the 100 stocks, and for the next 5 years, they don't make a change. They just hold those 100 stocks, and guess what? At the end of that 5-year period, they're going to get the return of the market. Oh, not the other side of the room. The other 50 people, they're buying and they're selling. They're trying to outwit their neighbors. And every time they buy and sell, it's costing them money. It's costing them commissions. It's costing them what's called the spread between the bid and ask. It's just one of those expensive aspects of being a trader. So at the end of that 5-year period, those people that traded back and forth, yeah, there might be a couple of people who ended up ahead and beat those other 50 people. But the fact is, the average return of all of these 50 people trading in and out is going to be a lot less than the half of the room that every person got the best return. And so that is one of the reasons I lobby so aggressively to get you to consider passive rather than all this active trading that goes on that ends up costing you money. Number 6, you could have done better. I guarantee it. You could have done better. I don't care how you invested your money. I don't care what return you got. I want to guarantee you something. You could have done better. Now, of course, this could be what you might hear from somebody in the financial industry. Gee, I wish you had followed my advice. You would have done better. And that's kind of a trap in our industry because there is no risk in the past. That's important to you to understand. There is no risk in the past. We all know what we should have done. We should have put all our money in Microsoft in 1986. We'd all be rich. But we don't know that at that point. In fact, a lot of people may not know that back in that period of time, Bill Gates, when he was building all of his office space, made sure they built it so it could be used for another purpose in case Microsoft didn't make it. So, what we know is that there's always a better story. And how can I say that I guarantee whatever you did, that I could do it better? Because you show me what you did, and I'll do the same thing, except I'll use just a little bit of leverage, just 10% leverage, just a little tiny bit of leverage, and that would have given me a better return. Does that mean anything? No, because I'm looking backwards to tell you how good I am. Number 7, you don't have, I guarantee it, you don't have the ultimate portfolio. Now, this is a little bit of a questionable guarantee, but just play along with me here. See if you could accept this as a possible guarantee. So you take your portfolio that you've worked hard to put together. You read my book, you read other books. You found all the information you could, and you condensed it all into your portfolio. So you proudly walk into some office and you put it down there in front of some financial advisor, and they look at it and they say, you know, you could have done better. I really think you should be using my strategy. This would be a better strategy. Keep in mind, in the financial industry, the job really is to get people to move from where they are today to where we are with our advice. That's what we're all doing. I could even be accused of doing that because I want you to do it my way as well. And one of the fascinating things that I found in putting together my book, Financial Fitness Forever, one of the fascinating things I found in looking at the 50 largest 401ks in America. I mean, these are people who have so much money, they could find the very best. And they would probably, if they found the very best, I would look at each one of them and I'd only have to solve the problem for one because they'd all be the same. There aren't any two the same. They're all different because somebody said, I found a better way to do this. So don't be surprised when you take whatever you've decided to be the best way to invest your money. You take it to some professional and they say, no, I don't think so. I mean, it's a good try, but I think you can do better. Number 8, the best asset classes will have long periods of subpar performance. You must be tough about this. I know our industry says, and I said it on the show, I said small cap better than large cap. That's true, but from 1969 to 1999, large cap actually did better than small cap, and small cap was twice as risky. So even though it has 80 plus years of far superior performance, you know, there's a very long period of time, 20 plus years, that small cap didn't provide that extra return, which is why you don't want to put all your money in any one asset class. Now, some say the best shall be last. Well, in this business, that does happen, because when we look at bonds during what they call the lost decade, that 10-year period, 2000 through 2009, 2010, that period of time, the S&P 500 basically broke even. But in long-term corporate bonds, you would have been up 8.1% a year. And you hear this, well, why should I be in the stock market? Because I could have made 20 times as much money in the bond market. And of course, from 1990 to 1999, the previous period of time, the stock market made about 18.2% versus bonds of around 8.1%. So would it surprise you to find out at the end of 1999, people were saying, well, you should have your money in the stock market. And if you start chasing back and forth, trying to find whatever has just been hot, you're in for a kind of a cruel lesson, because over and over, I don't know how many of you know about the troubles that Japan has had in their market. But from 1970 through 1990, 25.8%. I mean, they were on fire. I remember one couple came in, and her mother actually lived in Japan, and the father had died, and they wanted her mother to diversify out of all of her holdings in Japan. She had a lot of real estate and she had a lot of stocks. And her position was a lot like the position of a lot of surviving spouses. This is what Dad liked. These were the things the family trusted. And so she would not diversify away. And so after that 26% compound rate of return for 20 years, for the next 20, it was a loss of 1.5% a year. And how is that different from the technology so hot in the last of the 90s? And then to be down 50% over the last 10 years. How does this happen? Well, it's the nature of markets. And right now I hear gold, buy gold, and all sorts of ads on TV and on the radio about how smart it is to put your money in gold. Well, gold could be next. Gold was 800 before it went down to 250. Now it's back up again. It's a very risky investment and could just as easily fall right back down to 800 from 1500. It's the nature of markets. It's the reason we want you to diversify. Now, number 9, I suspect you've heard this before, but I want to remind you one more time that if you put your money in the market, I guarantee you will lose money. I don't care who you follow. And I think that whether you're losing money to inflation, to high expenses, to taxes, or because the market goes down, all of those things are losses. And your job is to manage every one of those risks, those things that can cost you your financial future. And of course, it's easy to know how much the loss can be. And we can tell you, we could say, oh, if you're 50-50, you should be prepared, 50% bonds, 50% stocks, you should be prepared for a 20% loss. We could say that to you. But the industry will say, nah, you know, that's not good for you, because if we tell you that, you might not invest anymore. We'll even say it's not in your own best interest to know the truth. Well, the fact is you should know the truth so that you build a portfolio where you don't spend your life going from one advisor to the next because the advisor never told you the truth about the downside. Number 10. Now, this is a guarantee where I would say it's the best I know. I've got a couple of them here I want you to know about. I believe that our industry makes more money the less efficient you are. The worse the mistakes you make, the more our industry makes. We depend on you to make mistakes so we survive. That's a little harsh, I suspect some will say, but that's where the evidence seems to be. And it's not like these people don't know what's in your best interest. Because what I believe, again, this is not a guarantee, but what I've seen from 40 plus years around this business, that if people who are good savers simply got market rates of return, you don't need to beat the market. Why do you need to beat the market? More people get beat trying to beat the market than beat the market. So my view is if you just got good, solid market returns and you're a good saver, got to add that, if you're a good saver, I think you got it made. And I think it's very important for you to understand that at some level, there's a kind of chance that goes on in our industry. There's a flip of the coin chance. It's about a 50-50 chance that a manager will or will not beat the market. So let's say we start out with 20,000 managers, and we all flip a coin. And if it comes up heads, ha, I win. Now, if it comes up tails, I'm fired. So at the end of that first year, there are still 10,000 survivors, and they all flip coins. Hup, still there. And now there are only 5,000 of us. And then we flip again, and we flip again, and we flip again, and pretty soon, after 10 years, there are 20 geniuses left. Now, they were good flippers, or they were lucky flippers, but they have ended up in the top 1/100th of 1/10 of 1%. They have ended up in the top 1/10 of 1%. Fantastic. That is fantastic. But how do you know who's going to win all those flips? And here's the part that gives me hope for you. That if you simply put your money in the market in ways to be like the market, from all of the evidence we have, you would end up in the top 2 to 3%. Now think of that. Oh yes, we would love to win a lottery. We would love to have our boss come in and double our salary tomorrow. We would love to be in that top 1/10 of 1%. But what are the odds? Because the other side of that is, think about it, what about the people that are at the other end of that spectrum? What about the managers who are in the bottom 10% or the bottom 20%? You want to end up there? And that's the problem. You're taking the risk, you get the bad flips. But the market itself is good, not bad, for the average investor. If you just get market returns, you're not average. You are amazingly superior. So I hope these 10 money management guarantees will put you on the path to financial success for now and forever. Financial fitness forever. Thank you very much. Thank you.